ArcGIS Pro Intelligence, or Pro Intel for short, is Esri's powerful desktop application for intelligence professionals. ArcGIS Pro Intelligence supports spatial, relational, and temporal analysis across a wide variety of data formats. ArcGIS Pro Intelligence is tightly coupled with the ArcGIS platform, supporting data sharing across ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise, or as a completely disconnected workstation when needed. When it comes to managing, analyzing, and creating meaning out of your data, there are too many tools to cover, but I do want to mention a few categories. There are tools to import and convert structured and unstructured data, tools to perform analysis, such as mapping cell phone patterns, creating tracks through movement data, finding clusters and activity. Pro Intel also offers custom symbology for entities, critical infrastructure, drugs, and incidents. There are several ways to visualize and explore your data. With link charts, you add spatial or non-spatial entities that may represent people, location, events, accounts, or other objects, and then relate these entities by creating links between them. You can visualize data in chronological order within a timeline. Charts and graphs help you uncover patterns and trends. And of course, you can map your data and create new features in 2D and 3D maps. Let's take a look. This is a start page of ArcGIS Pro Intelligence. A carousel in the center displays a list of recent projects that can be double-clicked to open. In the upper right is a list of project templates. We've seen organizations use these to bundle specific maps, layers, layouts, database connections for different missions or job responsibilities. One of the most notable changes from ArcGIS Pro is the introduction of two new tabs. So the first is the Data tab, which includes a unique to ArcGIS Pro Intelligence tool, such as the Batch Import tool. The Disseminate tab also contains many of the same tools found under the Share tab in ArcGIS Pro. The Analysis tab contains analytical tools unique to ArcGIS Pro Intelligence, including the link chart and the timeline. I've received a report of a hypothetical incident at Mount Yamato in the southern Ural Mountains in Russia. For years, the United States has alleged that Mount Yamato is the location of a secret nuclear bunker. However, these allegations are fiercely denied by Russia. Utilizing this report and other activity and location information, I can begin to build a picture of Mount Yamato and the nearby closed town of Merzigov, where the workers live. Instead of manually reading through this report and trying to copy and paste geographic information into a feature class, I can actually use a tool called Extract Locations in ArcGIS Pro Intelligence, which actually scans documents such as PDFs for spatial coordinates. Points representing locations are stored in a feature class and are added as an active layer to the map. Many of the unique tools found in ArcGIS Pro Intelligence focus on date and time. Just like in ArcGIS Pro, I can use a geoprocessing tool to format the date and time in order to conduct analysis. After correctly formatting, I can then enable time using the time field I just created. I actually have access to a repository of cell phone activity data from different users near the Mount Yamato facility. I have several spreadsheets, with each spreadsheet representing the cell phone activity data from one person identified with a unique number. Using ArcGIS Pro Intelligence, I can actually batch import the entire repository of data directly into my map. Now, I've already gone ahead and run this tool and added the layers to the map, but it's still faster than manually adding the layers in manually. So each person's cell phone activity data is shown in a different color. With a quick visual inspection, I can see that there is activity from one person over the Mount Yamato facility. Let's take a look at this person's cell phone activity data and see if there's any correlation between this person's cell phone activity data near the incident in both space and time. First thing, let's create a definition query and focus solely on the activity that occurred the day of the incident, which is October 26th. This will filter out all of the data that isn't on October 26th. ArcGIS Pro Intelligence provides a timeline tool allowing for the visualization of data along a temporal axis. Timelines show where in time data falls. I can add the cell phone activity data as well as select date and category field. It's actually possible to add more than one layer to a timeline. So I can also add the incident timeline as well. So I can see here right on my timeline where the incident occurred as well as all of the cell phone activity data happening prior to the incident. I can actually select events and activities occurring on the timeline to have them selected in my map space. The incident sequence tool creates a sequential connecting lines between related incidents based on a date field. The output will then show the order and direction of related events. So for this example, it'll show the sequence of cell phone activity data prior to the incident. Looking at the output, I see a sequential set of cell phone activity records happening just prior to the incident here. Using ArcGIS Arcade, I actually created custom symbology showing the time associated with each location and cell phone activity data feature. I can actually then export this map to a variety of different formats in order to be used within a brief, a PowerPoint, or a report. Now that I've identified a person of interest and built out a timeline of events prior to the incident at Mount Yamato, I want to analyze all the cell phone activity data from the person of interest to create a pattern of life through the creation of a link chart. In this map, I have cell phone activity data for a person of interest, as well as locations of interest that the person of interest frequents. This symbology is actually using some of the custom symbology found solely in ArcGIS Pro Intelligence. Now, I want to understand our person of interest cell phone activity data at the different times at the important locations to start to understand their movement and patterns of life. A link chart is a great way to visualize relationships between entities in your data and is a very complementary view to your map. To create a link chart, I first need to create two entities. The first entity that I'm going to create is the cell phone activity layer, focusing on the date, calling it the person of interest. This will bring in all the cell phone activity data based on the date that it occurred. The next entity is the locations data set. This includes the name of all the important locations that our person of interest frequently habits. Now, once I have the cell phone activity data and the important locations, I then need to create a relationship between these two layers. Let's start off by taking a look at our person of interest and then our locations. Now, the key part to building out a relationship is understanding the key fields. For example, in this example, each cell phone activity record has the name of the location where the cell phone activity occurred. And the location is the same name of the location found in our location fields. So it's going to base a connection off of that similar name. Now, there are multiple different ways of changing your layout for your different link charts. For this example, the organic one displays the relationships in the best format. You can see here the gray lines showing the relationships between the yellow, which is the cell phone activity records, and then the gray and black, which are our locations. Zooming into one of the clusters, I can hover over it to see that this is the barracks. I can see that there is lots of cell phone activity data from different dates happening at the barracks, which makes sense. Barracks is where the workers tend to spend majority of their time when not at work. Can also zoom down and focus in on the date. This is the cell phone activity data from October 26, which is the date of the incident. You can see that there is activity at the underground entrance, as well as the guard shack, and even at the barracks. Understanding and visualizing these relationships help us understand this person's movement throughout space and in time, and the correlation between the two to help us understand this person's movements and helping to build a bigger picture of the activity occurring at Mount Yamato and Merskavoy. ArcGIS Pro Intelligence includes a set of spatial queries can identify spatial relationships between activities and key locations. These queries can be turned into conditions. When data meets the parameter set for a condition, ArcGIS Pro Intel sends an alert. Here's an example of a condition I've built out. This is looking for new cell phone activity records that occur after the day of our incident, October 26, falling within our boundary. When I've built out the condition, I can run it, and if any of my data meets those conditions, I'll receive an alert. Now, ArcGIS Pro Intelligence doesn't have to be active. It just needs to be open on my desktop in order to receive an alert. Now, let's say I know I'm going to have my data updated on a regular basis. I can actually then set a recurrence. So what this will do is it will rerun our conditions, for example, every 12 hours. Can set it up, and every 12 hours, it will run the condition and see if any new data meets our parameters. If it does, I will receive an alert as long as ArcGIS Pro Intelligence is opened. This allows you to transition to your other work, knowing that your data is going to be queried on a regular basis. So I've demonstrated how ArcGIS Pro Intelligence can be used to create a pattern of life in a continual analysis of Mount Yamato in Russia. My colleague Julia will now demonstrate how ArcGIS Pro Intelligence can help analysts analyze and understand GPS tracks. Over to you, Julia.
All right, thanks, Sarah. So Sarah showed you some of the basic components of Pro Intelligence and how it can be used in intel situations. Now I'm going to show you how we can tie these components like mapping, link charting, timelines, and full motion video together to fully analyze a scenario. So how do we do this? We'll start with historical analysis of these GPS tracks or waypoints of a targeting network in Adelaide, Australia. This data was captured using an MTI sensor and brought into ArcGIS Pro. By exploiting the specific time frame of tracks, we can go back through this data and drone videos that we have collected for this network to determine specific vehicles of interest and their meetings and activities to see if there's anything else we can discern about this data and potentially bring to light. So if I open the attribute table for this GPS tracks up, we'll notice that there's over 150,000 waypoints within this layer. Now this layer is time enabled, which is going to allow us to analyze not only where these individuals traveled, but when they're traveling and who they met with. This would be nearly impossible with just a spreadsheet or the naked eye alone. If we only had access to the tools within ArcGIS Pro, we might try running a hotspot on these trajectories to determine common meeting areas. But in Pro Intelligence, however, we can take this a step further. So as Sarah mentioned, in the Analysis tab, we have a lot of different tools, including this gallery of tools that are unique to ArcGIS Pro Intelligence. So today I am going to focus on the movement tools, more specifically the Find Meeting Locations tool. So this tool, when it loads, is going to input my meeting location points, and it's going to output a polygon and point feature class. So I will name this one Meeting Locations, and I'm going to name the point features just meetings. The unique identifier here is going to be names. And essentially what's going to happen here is the polygon feature class is going to be areas determined by the tool that a lot of meetings are occurring, so a lot of people are spending time here. The output point features are going to be actual meeting points. This is going to be points in time when 2 or more people are in the same location for an elongated period of time. Now I'm not going to run this tool because given the fact that there's over 100,000 waypoints, it would take a minute or two to run, but I do already have the outputs ran in my table of contents. So what I'll do here is turn off the GPS tracks and turn on my meeting points and my meeting polygons. I'll then zoom down to meeting area 4. So this is going to be a polygon. The blue polygon is going to be the meeting location. So this is going to be an inclusive area of where a lot of meetings are occurring as determined by the tool. Now the meeting points are going to be represented in yellow through red. And if I open the attribute table, we'll see that there are about 28 meetings found within this time frame for this network. So this layer has a lot of information here. It has unique identifiers for participants 1 and participants 2, as well as a meeting duration, which is going to be in seconds, the meeting start and end time, and then the meeting area ID. So what I've done here is actually join the meeting area polygon to the meeting area points, so that within the spreadsheet I can now tell from the point layer which meeting area these meetings occurred in. So these movement tools are a good start. I've been able to determine some pretty common meeting locations as well as really spreadsheet answers of who's meeting with who. But in Pro Intel, I can go a step further and really determine where the most common meeting location is and then who the major players are within this network. So to answer the first question, let's create a timeline here. I'll move this up so we can see a little bit more. And the first thing that I'm going to add is the meeting location polygon. The display field is going to be that unique meeting area ID that I've added in order to join. So once I apply this and add them to the timeline, I can see where my meeting areas exist in time. And I can see that there's actually a little bit of overlap between some of them. So what I'm going to do is enable lanes so each of them is separated and then show lane names. So now we can see that the majority of these meeting locations really only exist for about a day at a time, with the exception of meeting location 4, which actually exists for an entire week. So using the timeline, I've been able to determine that meeting location 4 is really a hotspot for them, as they've kept it much longer than the other locations. Now just quickly to show another way that I can see where meetings occurred, I'm going to add the meeting points to my timeline, and they're going to show up at the bottom here. And now this would be another way for me to determine what meeting location a meeting occurred in, just based on which meeting location was persisting at the time of the meeting. So if I scroll through, I can see that information. So using timelines, I've been able to determine that this meeting area 4, is the most important one to the network. But how do I determine who the key players are within this network? Well, I'll do that with link charting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is add my entities. So I'm going to start again with meeting location polygons. The unique identifier is going to be meeting area ID. And I'll call this meeting locations again and add it to the link chart. So now my 5 meeting areas have been added to my link chart, and I actually have link charts showing up in my table of contents so that I can examine my entities a little further, and I can actually select them and go ahead and label them by name. So the default is going to be gray, which is a little hard to see, so I'll change it to white. And now I have these meeting locations on my link chart and labeled. So the second thing that I want to do is go ahead and add those meeting participants. So I'm going to do that here. The unique field is going to be participants, and I will call this one meeting participants as well, and add those to the map. Once again, I'll select them in my table of contents so I can label them so that we can really begin to know who's who. So now I have everything that I need on my link chart, but I need to begin to add the linkages and the relationships. So I'll add my first relationship type. This is going to be linking meeting participants to meeting locations, and it's going to be called met in. The key fields here are going to be our unique meeting area ID, and this is going to show me where participants were meeting. So if I change it to organic, we'll begin to see this in clustering. Now we've already pretty much determined with the timeline where people tend to meet, but this is going to show this to us in a little more detail. And we'll actually see that we kind of have some clustering within our link chart. We have a major cluster here, but then these other meeting area locations are actually kind of going to be isolated, and people really tend to only meet within one meeting area location. So once again, I've kind of answered where the popular meeting location is. We can see meeting area 4 has the most people meeting in it, but we want to answer who is most important in this network, which participant is most important. So we are actually going to create another relationship type linking meeting participants to meeting participants. This is going to be called met with. And my key field here is going to be participant 1 and then participant 2. So I'm linking participants to each other based on who they've met with. We'll see more linkages added. If we drill down into this area, we'll see that originally we only had linkages between these participants and their meeting location, but we now have new linkages between participants. So we know that they've met not only within this area, but we know that they've met with each other. So I'll zoom out a little bit here. And if I wanted to discern more about this, so I want to really determine who the major players are, given that this is a small link chart, I could probably, look at this a little bit and determine it for myself. But I can also use link analysis to be more exact and to get real numbers and statistics here. So the first thing that I want to show is a measure called centrality, specifically betweenness centrality. Now this is going to be a measure from 0 to 1 that's going to show how connected someone is in a network based on how likely information is to pass between them. So let's look in both directions first, and we'll see that meeting area 4 has a score of 1, so it has the highest betweenness centrality within this network. Now this is pretty expected here because we know that, chances are if you're meeting in this network, you're probably meeting in meeting location 4, or you're meeting with someone who has previously met in meeting location 4, so that makes sense. Now, if we just do outgoing, we'll notice that this individual actually has the highest betweenness centrality within the network. And if we look at them, it kind of makes sense because not only are they meeting in meeting area 3, but they're also meeting in meeting area 4. So they're one of few individuals that meet in both. And within those meeting areas, they're actually meeting with a lot of different individuals. If we look at who's number 2, we'll see that this individual next door to him is pretty connected as well. So another measure that we can use is degree centrality. So this is going to be a measure of who has the most meetings within the network. So once again, pretty obviously, meeting area 4 has 9 meetings. We pretty much knew that. But if we look at the participants, we'll see that this individual, once again, has the most meetings. So he's not only the most connected in terms of information, but he has the most meetings at 6. This individual next to him will have 5, and then some of these individuals at the top will follow quickly with 4. So using those variables, we're able to determine that this individual is really connected. And the last thing that I want to show is neighborhoods. So this is going to be a way to show how I could reach individuals within my cluster based on a certain amount of hops. So let's say I select this individual. What I'm seeing here is that within one hop, I'm actually able to go from this individual and reach any of these individuals or meeting locations. Within 2 hops, I can reach all these individuals, and within 3 hops, I've been able to reach my entire cluster. So I can see that this individual is pretty connected. It only takes him 3 hops to reach everyone within his cluster. But I can actually go ahead and do that again for this individual here. And click on him and see that within 1 hop he can reach all these individuals. And within 2 hops he's actually reaching everyone within his network. So once again I can see that this individual is actually more connected than these ones at the top because it only takes him 2 jumps to reach everyone within his network as opposed to 3. So I will click out of this link chart because now we've been able to use timelines and link charting to determine that meeting location 4 is the most popular area, and we've determined who is probably the most connected within this network. So the last thing that I want to do is use full motion video just to show you how we can incorporate videos and imagery actually into Pro Intelligence to determine more information. So what I'll do here is first zoom to video and play the video. So this is going to show me a couple things. This dot here is going to show me the path of the sensor. So this is going to be where the drone is actually flying when it's recording this video. This polygon down here is going to show me where the frame is actually being recorded, and I can zoom to that to see exactly where my video is taking place. So it's actually occurring over meeting location 4. Now I can also do automatic follow, so this means that as the video shifts, the map is going to move as well, which is very helpful because I don't have to keep panning and zooming to keep up with where the frame is. Also within FMV, I now have this new data tab here, which is going to allow me to use this feature map time to video. So what I want you guys to pay attention to here is the meeting point locations. As I hit map time to video, some of those points are going to disappear because what I've done is not only link the map and the video in space, but also in time. We'll notice that the time slider is now only showing the time that is on the video. So I can now see exactly which meeting are happening in this meeting location and in the video at this time. I also have the ability to do the opposite by displaying features from the map onto the video. So I can do that, and it's going to add my polygons here as well as my points. Now what I'll do is just quickly change the symbology here and hide that away. And now I can see exactly what meeting area 4 encompasses. So I'm seeing that it's really including some of this parking lot as well as potentially some of this dock. And then I also have the ability to actually frame a snapshot. So what I can do here is take a snapshot from the video, and it's going to ortho rectify it and add it to my map. So now within my map, I can see what meetings are occurring, and I can actually see what meeting area location 4 looks like. So I now no longer need the video. I was able to pull that imagery from it. And then lastly, what I want to show you is we'll zoom forward a little more in time. And I have the ability here to actually do what's called adding metadata to features. So I'm going to actually create a feature class from this video's metadata to show the frame center point of my sensor. So as I do that, I'll see that it's actually creating this little breadcrumb trail. It's created a feature class within my table of contents here that's actually going to be recording where this frame center is. So I can see that on the video as well. So this is going to allow me to follow along, which is a little redundant since I do actually have the trajectories, but if I didn't, I could then take this feature class and begin to analyze it like I did with the trajectories. So I'll pause this here, but essentially using the mapping, timelining, link charting, and full motion video really allowed me in Pro Intelligence to get a full picture of what was happening within these very basic trajectories. So what started out as just point data has really become rich information and insight into this network and individuals and locations. So Pro Intelligence really allows me to do that by giving intelligence analysts the ability to dive deeper and visualize, explore, and analyze their data to produce actionable intelligence products. Thank you.